For the past few weeks on the Friday episode of The Breakfast Show, we've been opening up the airwaves for what I've been calling an after party. That after party was designed to give our audience an opportunity to join me on the show live. Now, normally the contents of the after party is just some random chat, but today's show was different. On today's show, I was joined by Rich Woods of Band of Builders, a charitable organisation that is now turning its attention to combating the scourge of mental health issues that are impacting the UK construction industry. Richie's contribution was insightful and thought-provoking, and his message and the message behind the Band of Builders Big Brew initiative needs to be shared. So on this occasion, we've actually recorded it. We get to talking about the Big Brew soon enough, but I started by asking Rich about Band of Builders.
I'm here as part of Band of Builders, which is a UK construction industry charity that's been around for about 5 or 6 years now, and predominantly they help people in the construction sector or associated with the construction sector when the worst happens. Life-altering conditions, terminal diagnosis and things like that. And what we do day in, day out is we go in and we make practical adjustments to people's homes. So it might be installing wheelchair ramps, it might be putting in accessible bathrooms, it might be completely renovating the house for a young girl who's got a skin condition that means that she can't live in a normal space. But I'm here specifically this morning to talk about the Big Brew, which is our new campaign that launches at the beginning of October, and is all about mental health in the construction sector, based on some pretty startling facts around an estimated 2 suicides a day in the sector, 400,000 lost days to mental health, at a cost to the construction sector of about £37 billion. We've been working on this, and this has been an idea that the volunteers, it's actually come from our volunteer team a number of years ago, and we've been trying to find the right way to launch this. The Big Brew is two things. It's a campaign and it's a set of services. So the campaign is about how we're going to raise our money and how we're going to start a conversation in the trade about mental health. And the services is what we're going to roll out over the next year, and it's going to carry on going so that we can better support the trade and we can provide the right links, the right services, the right support to those who find themselves in need. But it starts, as you quite rightly said, it starts with a cup of tea or coffee or beverage, whatever you choose. I've got my little cup here.
Cheers, Rich.
Cheers. Better sip. And that is what we're encouraging people to do, is from the 1st to the 15th of October this year, we want people to find their local Big Brew. We definitely want people to sign up to host a Big Brew as well. But we want everyone to come together, get the kettle on and have a chat and talk about mental health and start that conversation. Whilst we're at it, we're going to do a few other things along the way. Ask people to put a couple of coins in the coffers to help us roll those services out. But it's a really good point for us to start that conversation. So I think the way that we're doing that is quite light touch. It's the way that most of the trade are used to engaging, which is in builders, merchants, it's with suppliers. It's going to be across the country already. So in the first 2 weeks, we've already signed up, I think, close to 150 events that are going to roll out across that first 2 weeks. And that means that wherever you go, you're going to be able to kind of walk into a builder's merchant and see the stand, grab a cup of tea, and then you'll be able to kind of access what we've got on offer there, and then learn more as we go through the year.
There's two things that strike me about this. I mean, first of all, just to explain to everyone why you're on this show in particular, we started to do this extended show probably 5 or 6 weeks ago on a Friday, and I've been referring to it as an after party, but an after party kind of suggests something way more exciting than 10:30 in the morning with a cup of coffee in your hand. So I've been looking for an alternative name, and when I saw the Big Brew, that seemed like a perfect name for the after show. It also seemed like a very good initiative, and I think the thing that really struck me about it is it's such a British solution to a problem. Because, have a cup of tea and wait for this to all blow over. That's the way Brits work, isn't it?
It is, and it's when you talk to Peter, who's Peter Cape, who's run out a load of our services and has sort of designed a lot of the support we're going to, it was predicated on the idea that actually people open up over a cup of tea. It's about giving a little bit more dwell time than a simple kind of how you doing. Oh, you're just buying something in the merchant or checking in with someone. And the longer we can hold those conversations, the longer we can create what we call a permissive environment, which is just an open space to be able to talk. And it doesn't have to be about mental health, it just has to be a free space to talk. The better off we can be. And we produced alongside that a load of other sort of support items that you can be used on the day to make sure that that's a really good space for people to start their conversations. I think it's really important for me to say that this isn't designed, the Big Brew is not designed to be a great big intense mental health chat. It's just the start, it's just the opening gambit in our services. So don't be worried about hosting a Big Brew and thinking that you've got to have a counsellor there or anything like that. In some of our partners, they're using their mental health first aiders to host Big Brews, but in other places we're providing all of the things. So we're providing things like support cards and leaflets, which give you access to all of the different services we're running. Support cards, I think, are really important. They're just a little business card that opens up, but on the inside is three spaces where you can write down the names of 3 people that you could turn to for support. So again, just while you're having a cup of tea, you can really think about what your personal support network looks like, how people quite close to you, or where you could get that support from in the first instance. And just having that card knocking around in the van or in your wallet can really help kind of galvanise that idea of going and asking for support. Beyond that,
because I think that is one of the key challenges that we have in construction and demolition. You've got, particularly when you've got people that are working away from home, they're away from husbands, wives, parents, GP, their support network is often a long way away, and they can be working away 5 days a week. They could be working away for even longer than that. It is. I've described it in the past as a perfect storm. You've got the potential threat of job security, although that does seem to be slightly better at the moment because there is a bit of a boom going on. But threats of job security, you never know where the next pound note's coming from, and you're away from the people that you would normally turn to in your hour of need. So, as I say, any initiative. So, we've covered sort of mates in mind before, but I think taking this down to real grassroots level, because I'm always concerned with these things with mental health. The fact that this is, I wouldn't say it's a bandwagon, because that's really unfair of me to say so. But I think lots of people or lots of companies have jumped aboard that bandwagon and said, we've got mental health awareness people, we've got mental health first aiders and that kind of thing. But the real message needs to get down to the guys on site, because they're the ones that are the most likely to be impacted, aren't they?
You're absolutely bang on. We've seen a big change. The big companies have turned around and kind of sorted out their mental health approach and the mental health support, and that has therefore pushed a lot of the pressure down the supply chain, and certainly down out towards suppliers and sole traders and small organisations. What I will say is the response from the big companies to this idea and this concept has been phenomenal. We have Residio, who have come on board to headline sponsor the whole campaign, and without them seeing the potential in this straight off and just saying, yes, absolutely, you do what you need to do and we're there for you, we couldn't have got this off the ground in the way that we have. So we've got Residio who have led from the front, but also the rest of Band of Builders, current partners, have all rallied round in an incredible way. Jewson, DeWalt, Tallassee, they've all kind of really recognised the importance of mental health, and they're pushing as much as they can to get out to every other facet of the construction sector at the same time. So you are right, and that's why we're putting this message into these particular spaces. Peter tells the story of when he was working, that oftentimes if he was working on his own, he might only speak to the branch manager or someone within the branch that his builder's merchant in the week. That was the only contact he had. So we're trying to bring that relationship, and those relationships are really important. It's, you know, where everyone does most of their business when they're not just on site. So those relationships are so important, and we can grow those and we can utilise those to actually put better mental health into the vast majority of the trade where they're out on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I was made aware of this from a press release which suggested that Band of Builders and the Big Brew initiative was reaching out to other sectors. So in my case, specifically demolition, but I'm guessing you're targeting roofers and scaffolders and everybody else as well. I can link to, I think I can probably put it up on the screen. So that's what the website looks like. I've actually put a link to the Big Brew part of the Band of Builders website in the chat. But how do people actually get involved? What do they need to do to help support this and take part in it?
So there's two things. There's hosting and there's attending, and that's as kind of core as it gets. If someone wants to host a Big Brew, and doesn't matter where, you could do it on site, you could do it in the merchant, you could do it as a supplier, you could do it in your front room. All you need to do is on that website that you just put up, there's a link to our registration page. Once you register for your Big Brew, we'll take care of the rest. We'll send you all the information you need. There's opportunities to get packs sent out to you so that we've got something called a Big Brew in a box, and that does what it says on the box, which is, you know, all of your assets, your t-shirts and your mugs. They all come out the box ready for the day with a load of support material in there, so you can just open the box and get cracking. We've also made as much of our materials available to download on that website as well. So we don't want, you know, costs and ordering materials to be a barrier to entry to this. So everything's available as PDFs. Everything's available for people to print themselves or get ordered themselves, and we'll be kind of rolling out as much as we can in the run-up. Once they've registered, we'll keep them informed as to how everything's going, and the platform that we're using will be live just before we start, so sort of end of September, and that will mean that everyone can see all the Big Brews that are going on across the 2 weeks. They'll be able to look at which organisations are doing it, so they might get an idea. There's also posters on our pack which will be up in stores very soon, so you'll start to see our kind of big partners and some of our main supporters actually getting these posters up, so you'll all start to see that as well. And that's the key. If you want to host, register. If you want to attend, just find out where your nearest Big Brew is. They'll be on the site and they'll be on social media, and get ready to pop down and have a chat and a cup of tea.
Fantastic stuff. Now, you've just seen, you probably saw Peter on the show earlier. Peter does run a very, very successful and a very, very good podcast, actually. It looks like you've got an invite to join him on that as well. So you've clearly made the pair of you have clearly made an impact. Our friend Nick Drew over at Diggerman Blog has just posted this. And I've got to say, I agree with him wholeheartedly. Individuals get a black hat and they can turn into a bully overnight. And you know, I've tended to pick up on the job facing maybe women in the industry who can often be given a hard time. But we all know, you know, the initiation ceremonies that young guys go through when they arrive on site. And while a lot of that has traditionally been good-natured banter, some of that I think he's very close to bullying and harassment and humiliation. But it runs deeper than that, doesn't it? You know, I've worked with bosses in the past. I mean, I remember specifically on the first magazine I worked on, the first editor I had was one of those arms around the shoulder and encouraging. He was very much the carrot merchant. And then the next editor who replaced him basically just shouted and swore and stamped his feet and banged his hands on the desks. I would have walked over hot coals for the first one. The second one, I'd have cheerfully pushed him out of a bloody window, you know. So I think, you know, I've said, you know, I think the mental health message needs to go down. But it is those guys, you know, something like a mental health first aider, you know, may not be one for every site. You know, that message has got to get through to the middle management, so the site managers and project managers who are there day in, day out and keeping an eye on things, you know, because they will be the first response, won't they?
And it is, well, it's part of what we're rolling out. I think the initial number that we've got, we're targeting is 300 or at least 300 free places on mental health first aid courses. That's in partnership with Mental Health First Aid England. And that's a really core part, is actually getting that knowledge right down across the whole of the sector. We've also tried to create, or Peter has created an acronym that we're hoping is going to be sticky enough to keep people going. So we're asking people to remember their STATS, STATS, and I've written it down because I keep getting the order wrong, the S's in the wrong order. Support each other, talk about it, always ask twice, take it seriously, and stop the cycle. And actually, if we keep repeating those things, and they're going out, that STATS is going out across all of our material, you can actually start to reframe some of that negativity that can happen lower down on site, and you can really start to understand the effect that it will have on people. The kind of laddish view that comes out on especially across social media, and the hazing and it is bullying on site is part of the history of the trade. It doesn't mean it has to be part of the trade, and it doesn't mean that it has to change who the construction sector is. It just means that it needs to be aware of the effect that can have, and how that's brought into how banter and how fun is actually brought onto site in an effective and positive way.
No, you're totally right. As I say, it is something that really does need to be addressed. And one of the things that struck me about this, and I just realised I'm not on the screen, so I'm just a disembodied voice. One of the things that struck me about this is I regularly receive press releases from demolition and construction companies who have granted awards for safety initiatives. Somebody has spotted a potential fault, reported it to their boss, and has got a trophy or a Marks and Spencer's gift voucher. I've not yet seen, and maybe I've just not been looking hard enough, I've not yet seen that applied to mental health. Somebody actually winning an award for putting his arm around the shoulder of one of his colleagues, or speaking to his boss that one of his mates is struggling a bit. There's another initiative, isn't it?
That's absolutely it. And when you look at the HSE stats, and it's 55% of those days lost across the sector, those 400,000 days, that's mental health based. So the no end of kind of pure health and safety or accident prevention is going to stop that 55%, and that's where it needs to be a holistic view. People's health, mental health affects directly people's ability to work, to perform, to keep each other safe, and especially on site. Indeed, blimey, when we talk about demolition, it's incredibly important. Stuff will happen. People will get hurt if we're not caring holistically for that human being, and that's where mental health is just so incredibly important.
And I'm going to let you go in a second, because I'm sure you've got better things to do than to be sat here chatting to me. But one of the things that strikes me with this, and you just pointed it out, we find ourselves in the midst of a nationwide, an international, actually, almost a global skill shortage. We're really, really struggling for people. All the time that people are taking time off work for stress or mental health issues, we're exacerbating our own problem, aren't we? For the sake of going that extra mile and being a bit more of a caring industry, we could at least partly address our own skill shortage by just keeping people in work, couldn't we?
I mean, what could we achieve with an extra 400,000 days a year? Quite a lot, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So, would it be a skill shortage if you've added that number of days back into the industry, or would we have the time to support young people coming into the sector, give them the training, the interest, the qualifications that they need, and then build them in to have a really long, positive career in any facet of the sector, or in fact across loads of them. When I started out, and I was doing driveways when I was 15 and 16. I went from there. I went to roofing, and then to renovations and things like that. And that was a brilliant kind of base for me for the rest of my life. I haven't stayed in the sector, but I tell you what, I've used that for the rest of my life, and actually having that opportunity to be in there and be in a positive environment and learn all those skills, there couldn't be anything better. So let's put those 400,000 back into our sector, and therefore give young people the chance to experience really quality, supported entries into the whole construction arena.
You're an absolute star, Rich. I do appreciate you being here. I'm going to throw this up one more time. That's where people can find it. If you look in the chat, you will actually be able to find a direct link to that. We will be following this as things develop and as the launch takes place. It's the end of the month or beginning of next, isn't it?
It is. So we're live. We're live from. I think the first Big Brew is actually scheduled for the 1st of October. I don't know if we might sneak one in beforehand, but you never know. And they are going on beyond as well. So don't let the first 2 weeks be the barrier. That's going to be where a lot of the hype. But we've actually got partners and people hosting right on until the 20th and 25th. And keep a lookout for Bandit Builders or any of our partners at any trade shows as well. We're at Tool Fair right now, and along with DeWalt as well, all kind of pitching in, marketing the Big Brew, telling people about it, and getting the word out there.
Fantastic, Rich. Look, I really appreciate you being here. I think it's a fantastic initiative. As a result of your good thinking and Peter's great thinking, this part of the show from here on in every Friday will be the Big Brew. We're going to sign up to get our. What did you call it? The Big Brew box? Big Brew in a box or something?
Oh, we'll get you the Big Brew in a box.
You had me at Big Brew, to be perfectly honest, but Big Brew in a box sounds even better still. So that's fantastic. I'll be signing up to that after the show. Rich, you get on with your day job. Good luck with the initiative. And well, you know, on behalf of the rest of the industry, thanks for actually taking the initiative. I think it's very, very worthwhile.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thanks for having me.
All the best.
Cheers.
Right, so I've actually posted a link to the show in the chat now. If anybody else has got anything they would like to share, if you want to come on the show, you are free to do so. I'm going to go and check the comments and see what everyone's got to say for themselves. Well said, Nick. Yeah, absolutely. I do say it was one of those that just leapt off the page at me. I think the term brew was probably what attracted me first, because I do like me a cup of tea. But it is the British way. You know, that's how we tend to. You know, it got us through 2 world wars. I'm sure it can get us through a mental health crisis as well. I mentioned earlier the fact that on Sunday over on Instagram TV we'll be dropping our No Agenda show that we recorded back on Wednesday. And that was on the skill shortage that is currently impacting the industry. And as Rich has rightly said just now, you know, we're losing 400,000 odd days to mental health issues, stress and mental health issues. And that doesn't actually come up. I wish I'd known that before I started babbling on Wednesday. But one thing that does come up is the fact that we've got a lot of young women that should be invited to join this industry and encouraged to join the industry. 51% of the population, and we are still, to a fairly large degree, alienating them with the way that we operate. We could help solve that skill shortage problem, as Richard just said, by putting our arm around each other and being a little bit more caring, but also being a little more inviting to the female of the species as well. Peter actually mentioned the fact that Highways England has just announced a big spend. We also reported earlier this week, I think it was back on Monday, the fact that the industry is staring down the barrel of a £650 billion infrastructure pipeline that's planned for the next decade, all of which sound fantastic. And I'm fairly sure when that was announced, if you'd listened closely, you'd have heard the collective sound of hands being rubbed together throughout the construction sector. But to make that happen, apparently, we need to come up with, get this, 425,000 new workers within 3 years. I reported this week that HS2 has recruited or has created and recruited 20,000 workers in the past year. Now, if you think about the background to HS2 has had royal assent, it's had government backing, it's been the subject of huge publicity, not all of it good, but huge publicity. The likes of Lynch and Flannery, who I know Peter has reported on both of those, are really gunning for training people. I know the HS2 companies themselves are doing exactly the same thing. I think HS2 has had all the cards stacked in its favour in terms of recruitment, and it's come up with 20,000 people. we've got to come up with 21 times that many. Yeah, and unfortunately, Nick, I take your point, and I've said this before, and I think we've got. There's a lot of things that I'd like to say on this. I think first and foremost is the fact that we've kind of made our own bed. We've been using the same systems of recruitment for, in my experience, 32, 33 years. They've not worked. You know, we've had a skill shortage literally every single year of my 30 plus year career. We've never fixed it, and it is the Einstein thing. You know, keep doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome is the very definition of insanity. We know that. I think the other point as well is because we've failed to engage with the smarter people coming out of schools, colleges, and universities to a fairly large degree. I think we've got ourselves a situation now where those that fail or do not perform well at school traditionally have had effectively two choices. They either join the armed services or they become a labourer. We need to break that cycle. I know Rich was speaking about breaking the cycle in terms of mental health, and I totally agree, but I think we need to break that cycle, and we need to show people, young people in particular, the fact that construction is not all sight boots, hard hats, and mud and smelly toilets. There's way more to it. I've not listened back to it, so I'm only doing this from memory. I'm fairly sure that I actually said in my No Agenda show that when you look at, I'm thinking about a demolition company here, if a demolition company employs, let's say, 100 people, chances are 40 of those, at least 40 of those, won't own a pair of sight boots. They won't own a hard hat. They will never actually get their hands dirty. They're behind the scenes and they're driving computers. Young children or young people are good at that. They're creating 3D animations. Young people are good at that. They're doing social media marketing. Young people are bloody good at that. So there's all these opportunities that we're not actually shouting about. And Peter, you're absolutely right. Again, I am starting to repeat myself now. But one of the things that one of the points I made is we do need ambassadors, but not this type. Look at me. You know, as I mentioned earlier, my face is like a bag of spanners. I've got a grey beard. I'm losing my hair. I'm losing my teeth. I'm an old fart. If I were a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy or girl looking for a career, I am not taking any notice of this guy. This guy is past it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's completely disengaged with young people of today. What we need is, I've mentioned her before, you know, people like Katie Kelleher in the crane hire business, you know, young people, you know, a woman or a young woman who is a young woman. You know, she doesn't have to be blokey. She is not one of the lads, although she can F and blind with the best of them. She's not one of the lads. She's a girly girl, but she's a girly girl who drives a crane. She drives a crane with pedicured fingernails or manicured fingernails, should I say, and pink hair. You know, she can be a girly girl in a male environment, and she does it very, very well. She's not alone. There are lots of others. I know Peter's had one or two very, very intelligent and very well thought of young women on his podcast. I know Nick's interviewed several as well. They are out there. But I would say the same about skills as I would say about mental health. This is not a thing that we need to do, you know, once a year at the NEC, hold a skills show where construction and demolition is competing for young people alongside the likes of Google and Apple. It's not a once a year thing. Same as mental health. There has been a World National Suicide Awareness Day. There's been a Mental Health Awareness Day. All of those are fantastic, but this is every single day. You know, and not every single day. It's every single hour. You know, people are struggling for one reason or another every single day, every single minute of every day. So this needs to be an ongoing fight. And in terms of skills, I know we tend to ramp things up around about this time of year because we've got young people that are coming into the job market. In actual fact, we would have ramped it up a little while ago because people are coming back. You know, what would have been the end of a school term, they're now free to work. They've had their summer holiday and they're coming into the workspace. But grabbing them once a year or you know, getting them after the winter break as well, that's not enough. And waiting for people to get to career age, is not soon enough. We need to engage with people, or young people, at 5 and 6. They need to be exposed to construction and demolition and all the allied industries right the way through their career. Louise Carley was on the No Agenda show with me on Wednesday, and she laughingly said, did I use the trigonometry that I learned at school? I have never used trigonometry. To this day, I'm not entirely sure quite why I was taught it. But what I would have appreciated would have been taught how to manage money and taught an actual job. Nobody taught me this job. I learned it, if you can call it that. I learned it by trial and error. My job is easy. If I make a mistake, I spell somebody's name wrong. If somebody makes a mistake in construction or demolition, people die. So we need to engage with people at a very, very young age and to see them right the way through their career. Think about football. You've now got major football teams who are signing up prospects of 7, 8, 9 years old. Now, I'm not suggesting that construction companies, I'm not suggesting that Balfour Beatty go and raid, the primary schools for, their future site managers, but at least engage more than once a year, and remind people of exactly what is out there. And I just touched on this with Rich. Money drives business, and money most certainly drives construction and demolition. It's all very well to sit here and say, oh, we've got a skill shortage and we need to address it, all of which sounds pretty damn dull. But you imagine we get to the situation where there's 650 billion pounds of government money sat there waiting for somebody to spend it, but we've got nobody to do the work. And yet we can cure that. We can cure that just by, an industry-wide initiative. And unfortunately, it is going to be industry. The Construction Industry Training Board has just been granted another 3 years. You can make of that what you will. I can't say I'm overly enamoured with it. But that goes back to the Einstein thing. We've relied on the CITB to deliver sufficient people and people of sufficient quality for decades. It's never happened. We need, and unfortunately, I think we are seeing this now. When you look at HS2, the real drive of recruitment on HS2 has been down to the contractors and very specifically, actually, the plant hirers and the ground working companies that are actually supplying the equipment. I think they've realised amongst themselves, or possibly individually, that they can't rely on industry to deliver the people they need, so they've had to go out and find them themselves. That's fine, and I think that should be encouraged. But where is the united message? Where is that consistent message? Rather than Balfour Beatty going in one direction, BAM going in another, and Mace going in a completely different one, would it not be better to have effectively a construction curriculum? It's probably not the right word, but just a unified message that goes to schools and colleges. And it's set for different levels. So here's something that a 5-year-old will be able to grasp. Here's something that an 8-year-old might be able to grasp. Here's something that somebody going to senior school will be able to grasp, and keep engaging and keep engaging and keep engaging, because otherwise we end up with the situation that Nick described so clearly earlier. We end up with effectively having to fight amongst ourselves for those that did not do well at school. It's wrong. There will be issues in there that are not purely educational, but I've referred to those people as the dregs. We don't want the dregs. We want the young, dynamic people that are going to steer this industry, this exciting and innovative industry, into the future. Peter picked up on this earlier, and he referenced his own son, Lucas. There is a very valid point there. Of all the people out there at the moment that are doing the most and are caring the most about the environment, you'd have to say it's Gen Z, it's the millennials, it's the younger people. There is no industry more tuned and more attuned to protecting the environment than demolition. There really isn't. They recycle 98% of everything they produce, by and large, in this country. That is an example to every single industry sector, and that that should be a selling point to young people looking for a career. Join an industry where you've got a clearly defined career path with competence cards and promotions and escalating pay rates, and join an industry that is safeguarding the environment by recycling more than any comparable industry.